Good afternoon. Welcome to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. We're going to go ahead and get started. First agency that we're going to hear is Department of Disabilities, and our budget analyst, Naomi Kimura. Please present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Naomi Kimura. I'm here with the Department of Legislative Services to present the 24 allowance for the Department of Disabilities capital budget. So the Department of Disabilities manages the Access Maryland program, which funds accessibility modifications at state-owned facilities. Exhibit 1 on page 3 and 4 shows the 7 projects included in the fiscal 24 request for a total of $2,028,000. 6 of these projects are new projects, and 1 of them is an ongoing project at the historic St. Mary's City. One issue that the Department of Legislative Services wanted to bring to the committee's attention was about unencumbered funds managed by the Department of Disabilities. The department plans to encumber $2.9 million in fiscal 23. This led us to include a recommendation to adopt committee narrative requesting that the department produce an annual report of project encumbrances and expenditures. And I'll just close by saying that the Department of Legislative Services recommends approving the governor's allowance of general obligation bonds, in addition to adopting committee narrative as I just discussed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Kimura. Are there any questions for our budget analyst? Seeing none, we have with us today, joining us, Deputy Assistant Secretary John Brennan, Executive Director Lori Markland, and also Program Manager, Access Maryland, Keona Baker. They could all come up. Please proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Lewis, and other members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today on behalf of Secretary Carol Beatty and the Maryland Department of Disabilities. My name is John Brennan. I'm the Deputy Secretary of MDOD, and with me today is Ms. Lori Barong, who is the Executive Director of MD-TAP, and Ms. Keona Baker, who is the Access Maryland Program Manager. We'd like to thank our assigned DLS analyst, Ms. Naomi Kimura, for her thorough analysis, and we respectfully support the recommendation to approve the general obligation bond funds proposed for the Access Maryland program. We also support the recommendation that would require MDOD to submit an annual report outlining year-to-date encumbrances and expenditures for the program beginning on December 1st of 2023. We welcome the opportunity to work with DLS to develop a reporting format that provides the most up-to-date and accurate information on the program as possible. While we support this recommendation and share the committee's concerns about the slow pace of annual encumbrances, our written testimony outlines what we feel are the key factors that influence encumbrance rates for the program. I won't repeat them all now in the interest of time, but we would like to stress that in our opinion, these factors are far more impactful than reporting is on whether or not project encumbrances occur according to the design and construction schedule communicated to us by participating agencies at the time of application. Ultimately, the responsibility for advancing projects to completion and encumbering project funds rests with the Department of General Services, the University of Maryland, and the other participating state agencies. Our primary function is administrative, and our opportunity to help push projects to completion is minimal once the project is approved. Our written response also highlights steps we've taken at the application phase to encourage agency compliance with the approved implementation schedules. And with regard to reporting, MDOD regularly requests information, and what we get back is up to date at the time we receive it. The accuracy of our reporting out on that information is both reliable and available to DLS whenever they request it. While we feel that the analysis exaggerates the role that reporting has on moving projects to completion, we again want to make clear that we welcome the opportunity to work in concert with DLS to develop a consensus on the reporting format. In the meantime, we will continue to coordinate with the project managers of each agency and university to facilitate the timely encumbrance of project funds to the best of our ability. That concludes my oral testimony, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from members of the committee for the Department of Disabilities? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. That ends a budget hearing for Department of Disabilities. The committee will now move on to Department of Agriculture and presented by our budget analyst, Mr. Andrew Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 1, Department of Agriculture, fiscal 2024 capital budget analysis. You see there are 2 programs funded in fiscal 2024 and 1 program funded in fiscal 2023, and we'll discuss that in a second. In terms of the PAYGO and GO bond recommended actions, DLS recommends concurring with the governor's allowance and authorization. In terms of that 2023 project, on page 2, bottom of page 2 is the Maryland Food Center Authority Wholesale Produce Market. So there's $10 million in Maryland Department of Agriculture's budget. This is really sort of pass-through money to create an extension, kind of refrigerated extension to the Maryland wholesale produce market. The idea here is to provide for more opportunities for vendors at that market. The first reimbursement sought from the Maryland Department of Agriculture on February 2nd, 2023 for about $104,000. And they expect to go to construction, bid for construction in January 2024. In terms of another update, the Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration, or REPI program, federal program, is still delayed, but we do have everything in place to actually have agricultural easements purchased using federal money around military installations, primarily southern Maryland, hopefully in Charles or St. Mary's counties, where we'll be finding out next couple of months whether there are test pilot projects that will go in those particular counties using that federal funding. In terms of the overall capital budget on page 4, see the reflection of the funding for the different programs. And then on page 5, we'll get right into the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Program. Preserves productive agricultural land and woodland to limit the extent of urban development and protects agricultural land and woodland as open space. $94.7 million in funding for fiscal 24. You see $16.6 million in general funds. That reflects the funding that was required by the Great Maryland Outdoors Act, Chapter 39 of 2022. So it's forward funding of repayment money, and it cleans out the books in terms of the repayments that were required. There's also repayment money for the Rural Legacy Program in the Department of Natural Resources. In terms of concerns, there's no federal funding reflected directly for this particular program. We talked a little bit about the REPIA program. There's separate agricultural easement conservation program funding through the federal government. This funding kind of follows on from a previous program we've not been able to use for a number of years for the reasons laid out here. There's hope that this federal farm bill, the Farm Bill 2023 Farm Bill, will be an opportunity to negotiate kind of conditions for that federal funding and perhaps allow for Maryland and other states to be able to use that program's funding where we have not been able to do so in the recent past. MAX program, or Maryland Agricultural Cost Share Program, starts on the bottom of page 7. This provides financial assistance to Maryland farmers for installing best management practices. They can be 87.5% with matching funding for most practices, but then if you have natural filters practices, which were designated by Chapter 120 of 2021, then the matches, the full funding is allowed for. In terms of the concerns we have here, there's only a $2 million to $4 million increase. So it's a $2 million increase in funding for the program. They have been very aggressive in terms of the encumbrances, but a lot more work is needed for Chesapeake Bay restoration purposes, particularly in the agricultural sector. And the question is whether the program is really ready to meet that need. And with that, I will close my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray, for the analysis. Are there any questions from members of the committee for Mr. Gray? Now call up the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, Secretary Addix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Kevin Addix with the Department of Agriculture. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm here simply to say that the department concurs with the concurrence, and we hope you have a nice day. But we've got a few people here. To my left, to your right, is Michelle Cable, who is with the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation. And to your left is Hans Schmidt, who runs our conservation resource management programs. And I just very simply want to say that the funds that you see in here and the dollars that you see, the taxpayer dollars, are going to further conserve and further promote best practices. And I've been saying it a lot, so forgive me if I've said it to you before, but our farmers are the original conservationists and the original environmentalists, and these programs help to make that the culture going forward and help to promote that and to promote doing the right thing for the Bay, all while improving the soils and making agriculture more profitable in Maryland. And that's going to be the priority going forward. So happy to take any questions that you have, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Delegate Grice.
Chairman, I don't have any questions, but just a comment and sort of reflecting on the event that many of us attended last night. And a lot of folks think that agriculture just means grain, just means poultry and livestock. And no, that's not the case. And right now we have to diversify this industry in order for it to be successful. And, with the event last night with the micro distilleries and the wineries and the breweries is a great example of that. And many of those booths, they represented places, not just on the Eastern Shore and the rural parts of Maryland, they represented, the urban and suburban areas too. So our entire state is participating in our agribusiness, and that's huge, and we have to expand on that. And that's so. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Grice. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the Secretary of Agriculture? Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, for being
Appreciate
here.
it.
That concludes the hearing for Department of Agriculture. The committee will now move on to Department of Environment, presented by Mr. Andrew Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maryland Department of the Environment, fiscal 24 budget analysis. I realize my mistake. I did not ask for bold budget language with Maryland Department of Agriculture. I solved that here with Maryland Department of the Environment. So on the page 1, you see the 2024 request. 9 programs are funded in fiscal 2024, around $402 million, around a $90 million decrease between the 2 years. In terms of the recommendations on page 2, DLS recommends once again concurring with the governor's allowance and also the authorizations and the pre-authorization for the Maryland Department of the Environment. In terms of the overall budget summary on page 4, you see the overall change in funding, around $90 million, and then the kind of fund splits there. But really, Exhibit 2 on page 5 gives you the big picture in terms of the changes. There's really a lot of the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, federal funding that's decreasing between the 2 years that's driving that decrease in the overall funding. In terms of the Water Quality Revolving Loan Fund, let's talk about 4 programs here. On page 6, we see is around $229 million in state fiscal 2024. And what you're seeing is a lot of Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act funding coming through. We'll be seeing a chart a little bit later about that. In terms of encumbrances and expenditures on page 7, there was a note in the supporting material indicating a negative encumbrance of $8.4 million in fiscal 22. So usually we're hoping to see $50, $100 million in encumbrances. A negative encumbrance is not a good sign. It reflects a cancellation of $10.7 million in previously encumbered loans and only $2.3 million in new loans. In contrast, they encumbered $424.5 million in fiscal 21. Therefore, Department of Legislative Services recommends MDE comment on why so few new loans and grants were encumbered in fiscal 22, and whether $10.7 million in loans and grants being reverted is typical. Then in terms of concerns, in the middle of page 7, just talking about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding, Exhibit 3 reflects the kind of out-year funding projections for the Maryland Department of the Environment. The intended use plans for the emerging contaminants, such as polyfluoroalkyl substances, has not been submitted yet. Therefore, DLS recommends the MDE comment when that intended use plan will be submitted to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for the emerging contaminants, and when this funding will be realized in MDE's budget. Then the exhibit there reflected on page 7. Moving now to the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund on page 9. There's around $77 million in fiscal 24 funding. Once again, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funding and federal funding is coming in. That's boosting the numbers. On page 10, just have another note about the encumbrances and expenditures. Similarly, there was very little encumbrances in fiscal 22, only $12.9 million, although it did encumber, MD encumbered $116.3 million in fiscal 21. DLS recommends that, once again, comment on why so few loans and grants were encumbered in fiscal 22. And in terms of concerns, similarly to on the middle of the page or bottom of page 10, similar to the Water Quality Revolving Loan Fund, DLS recommends that MDE comment on when it intends to send the intended use plan to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for the lead service line replacement, emerging contaminants, and assistance to small and disadvantaged communities. And then when that funding will show up in MDE's budget. In addition, DLS recommends MDE comment on whether there's a plan for addressing the big picture in terms of lead service line replacement, which is obviously a very important policy discussion for Maryland and an incredibly important use of the federal funding coming to the state. Moving now to page 11 is the Bay Restoration Fund wastewater projects, around $66 million in funding reflected for fiscal 24. This is actually $20 million more than was originally anticipated. This reflects both the interest from minor wastewater treatment plant users in funding to upgrade to enhanced nutrient removal technology. And it also seems to reflect also the fact that there's just a slower level of encumbrances, or kind of the timing of encumbrances that allows for more money to revolve in the fund because the people aren't seeking reimbursements. In terms of concerns on page 12, just the very bottom of the page there, you've already heard some information in the kind of Chesapeake Bay overview where we talked about the wastewater treatment plants and some of the concerns about what happened at Back River and Patapsco. And just this is a note here to talk about another component of that. So it's the preventative maintenance is certainly very important, and we have funding for certainly that opportunities within the state. And MDE has plans to address that with plants. But the concern is also about staffing and about whether there's adequate staffing to manage the plants, expert staffing. Therefore, DLS recommends that MDE comment on the impact of expert staffing shortages on the performance of wastewater treatment plants that receive BRF funding, and what can be done to address this issue. And then finally, we move to the Comprehensive Flood Management Program, which receives around $6.2 million on page 17. And we will move on to page 18 under the other comments, where we just recommend approval of the $3 million pre-authorization in fiscal 2025 for the Annapolis City Dock Stormwater and Flood Mitigation Phase project in Anne Arundel County. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray. Are there any questions for Mr. Gray on the analysis? Thank you. Next, we'll have Secretary Serena Coleman-McWilliam. Please come up. Being here, please proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair and Chair and Vice Chair. I'm Serena McElwain, Secretary for the Environment. I'm here to tell you that the analysis was done very well, and we agreed to a lot of it, and we addressed every question that was in the analysis, and we've already submitted that to you. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer those for you.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Are there any questions? Vice Chair Jazz Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. It's great to see you guys here with us. So I have one small question, but about two jurisdictions, one being Prince George's County, the other one being Howard County. I'm looking at the Comprehensive Flood Management Program, and of course we know, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up for one of my colleagues, Ellicott City had two major storms in less than a decade that really devastated them. I see that the program received 24 applications requesting $61.9 million. It just seems to me that there may be more money needed to address some of the mitigation efforts. One in the Howard County, Ellicott City, but the other part I was going to bring in Fort Washington. For those of us in the Washington suburbs, we know a number of years ago, from water runoff, some people's homes literally went into the water. And I know there's continuing efforts to improve down there too. So I just wanted to know if there's anything you can share with us on the funds for the Comprehensive Flood Management Program.
Yeah, I forgot to introduce you, Jeff. Jeff Fretwell, he's the Director of Waste Infrastructure Funding in MDE. Regarding Ellicott City, well, I'm going to let you go into details about the funding, but we've put a lot of money in Ellicott City since you mentioned that. I think it was this year or last year, we gave them I think it was $2.5 million for flood mitigation. And there are a lot of projects that we're looking at now to fund, but I'll let you get into details on those projects.
Yeah, Chairman Chang, Vice Chairman Lewis, Jeff Fretwell, MD. A comprehensive flood management grant program. We do have significant demand for that program, like you noted, Vice Chairman Lewis, in terms of number of applications received during the last application cycle. That program is a GO bond funded program, so the amount of funding is predicated on GO bond funds that are allocated to the program. So you'll see what's in the budget this year that's been proposed, but obviously there is a lot of need for that program. I think there's legislation this year also looking at that in the program and funding levels for the program. I will say that also some of the other programs, like the revolving loan fund program that the analyst mentioned, also can fund flood-related projects. We have funded some of those projects and have been working with Prince George's County specifically on their Corvius partnership and funding the Corvius partnership they have there.
I just want to say thank you, guys. I know it's a strong concern for us as Prince Georgians, but I know it's really important to Howard County. I know you guys are doing all you can, but had to highlight that. Thank you so much.
Well, I just want to add, it's important to me too. I lived in Prince George's County for 13 years, and I'm very much supportive of all efforts there. And now I live in Howard County, so you got me.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Lewis, for bringing that up. And actually, over the weekend, this past weekend, Vice Chair Lewis, myself, and other members of the Appropriations Committee visited Ellicott City and Howard County, and we're thankful to Delegate Courtney Watts and her leadership, a member of this committee, and also met with Department of Public Works at Howard County. And if the Madam Secretary, if your agency could please follow up with the Howard County Administration, also Delegate Watson, very much appreciated. We took a look at a comprehensive plan they have for a rain tunnel, and we would very much appreciate if any follow-up could be done on that. Thank you very much. Delegate Corman.
Refer to Delegate Metzger, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Metzger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here.
Hi.
I just need to refer to page 12 when it says DLS recommends MDE comment on the impact, the staffing and shortages at the wastewater treatment plant. That's near and dear to my heart.
I know it is. Every time I see you, we talk about it because it's important.
So my question was, have you heard from them?
Have I heard from,
Wastewater treatment?
you mean Constellation?
Yeah, well, wastewater treatment plant in Back River.
Yeah. Okay, well, have I heard from them? How do I answer that? We're in negotiations with.
Have they addressed the staffing shortage, or have they addressed any of?
Oh, yes. So we still have MES there, working with them. They are supposed to leave in April,
Right.
but that's not going to happen. I hope I'm not mistaking, but I certainly hope not. We are trying to keep them there to help make sure that that treatment plant has the resources, staffing resources that it needs to do what it needs to do. So we're not walking away yet. So we're trying to address it.
We've got to get it right. We've
Yes.
got to get this right. This is honestly, this is the last straw.
Yeah.
Our community has suffered long enough, and we've got to get it done. Thank you.
No, I hear your passion, and I assure you that we are not walking away. We're going to stay there until it gets done, and we're going to make sure the operations and maintenance, the funding that they need for infrastructure, they have it, and we are partners. Okay.
Metzger, are there any other questions from members of the committee for Madam Secretary and Mr. Fretwell? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. That concludes the
Thank you.
hearing for Department of Environment. The committee will now move on to Department of Commerce with Ms. Haskell presenting the budget analysis. Excuse me, we're going to now move on to the Department of Veterans Affairs presented by Ms. Morgan Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Morgan Smith, and I'm here to present the capital budget analysis on the Department of Veterans Affairs today. And we're going to start on page 3. So there are two programs that are programmed into the 2023 CIP. One is the new State Veterans Home, which has received prior state funding, and the second is the Garrison Forest Veterans Cemetery project. This is Phase 6. Previous phases have received funding in the past, but Phase 6 is just now receiving funding in this CIP. And on the bottom of page 3 and onto page 4, there is a discussion of the $1.1 million allocated for Garrison Forest. The Department of Veterans Affairs operates 5 veteran cemeteries across the state, and Garrison Forest in Owings Mills sees the largest amount of traffic with about 1,150 burials each year. It's believed that this is the second most active state veteran cemetery in the nation. And to that end, it's believed that burial capacity will be exhausted by fiscal 2028 if no changes are made to the property. DBM and MDVA have estimated that this project will add about 10 years of capacity to Garrison Forest. And while this project is currently funded through the state, design costs will be reimbursed through the Veterans Cemetery Grant Program, and construction will be entirely federally funded. Moving to the bottom of page 4 and onto page 5, you'll see information about the new State Veterans Home. There is about $6.3 million allocated in 2024 for this project. The new home will have 128 beds, and it will be located in Sykesville, Maryland. The need for this home is twofold. One, it's more centrally located to the vast majority of veterans in the state, as well as their associated healthcare facilities, and it will also align care with more modern models of care than we see at Charlotte's Hall. The home will be built according to the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs small home concept, and that allows for smaller homes with more resident-centered focus to design. They consider these little neighborhoods, and there will be a certain number of neighborhoods within this home. Page 6 has Exhibit 1, and this is a map that shows the estimated veteran population in calendar 2024. You'll notice that the dark blue areas are where the vast majority of veterans live in the state. Towards the bottom in St. Mary's County, that green star is where Charlotte's Hall is located, and the yellow star that is right between Carroll County and Howard County is where the new State Veterans Home is going to be located. And so you can tell that this is more centrally located. It's closer to several of the VA medical centers, whether that is in DC, West Virginia, Baltimore, or Wilmington. Maryland is currently allotted 1,100 veteran facility beds based on the veteran population of the state. In addition to the 120 beds at Sykesville, there are 444 at Charlotte's Hall, and that leaves about 528 beds unaccounted for. Because of this, DLS is asking MDVA to comment on whether there are plans for additional veterans' homes in the future to utilize this federal allotment of veteran home slots. Additionally, due to the timeline, DLS has concerns about whether the current project schedule will meet various federal Department of Veterans Affairs timelines. Further information on these concerns are outlined on page 7. MDVA has been asked to discuss the capacity to meet the federal Department of Veterans Affairs project deliverables within established timeframes, and if they're behind schedule, what ramifications this might have on receiving final federal Department of Veterans Affairs funding awards. Back on page 2, you'll see that DLS's recommendation includes concurring with the governor's allowance and approving both the $1.1 million in general obligation bonds and the $6.3 million in pay-go general funds for Garrison Forest and the new State Veterans Home, respectively. And with that, I conclude my testimony, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Committee on the analysis. Seeing none. Doug Corman. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morgan, thank you. I was interested in your description of Charlotte Hall on page 5. Some of us visited there a few years ago on this committee. This seems like a longer-term problem. It's great to build a new facility more centrally located, but this seems like a longer-term problem for Charlotte Hall. Is there any discussion of what to do about the facility? Does it need kind of an update? I mean, does it need, is there any discussion of that yet? And I can ask the department, obviously.
Yeah, it might be best to ask the department what their plans are with Charlotte's Hall. My impression was that it was grandfathered into previous models of care. There is a little bit of discussion in the operating analysis about the current status of the home, how many beds are filled, et cetera. But asking them specifically what their plans are moving forward for any sort of capital projects would be best, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now I'll call up the Secretary of Department of Veteran Affairs, Anthony Woods. Secretary Anthony Woods.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I guess if I could concur with the concurrence as well, I would like to do the same. I want to just first off acknowledge Morgan with DLS. Wonderful analysis as always and a good presentation. I'd like to introduce my Deputy Secretary, Bob Finn, Pete Panzer, who's Director of Finance and Admin for the department, and then Sharon Murphy, who worked for 37 years in service to the state, primarily at Charlotte Hall. So we can, of course, answer detailed questions there. For the record, I'm Anthony Woods, Secretary of Maryland's Department of Veterans Affairs, and I have the privilege of leading a mission-driven team that is solely focused on supporting our 371,000 veterans here in the state. Today, I just briefly want to acknowledge that almost nothing that we do would happen without our partners here in the legislature, but also our partners at the federal government at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Nowhere is that support more prominent than the 100% funding that they provide in grant funding for expansion of our state cemeteries. Next year's at Garrison Forest Veteran Cemetery. As you probably also know, the VA also contributes 65% of the cost of constructing new state veterans homes, allowing us to start to realize our dream of a second home to supplement and complement Charlotte Hall. We believe the new veterans home in Sykesville can represent a first step towards our hope of constructing regional veterans homes across the state, as we seek to leave no veteran behind by bringing elder care closer to where they live and where their loved ones live. During my brief tenure, it's been my pleasure to meet with so many members of the legislature, and I'm looking forward to partnering with you in the days and years ahead. It's clear that supporting our veterans is something that we are all united behind, and it's a privilege to work with you on doing so. So we are here in support of the governor's allowance, and we'd be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just re-ask the question I had a minute ago, which is, this seems like a longer-term problem for Charlotte Hall, which, again, it's a great facility. Many of us visited it. But is there a plan there for how to refresh it in a way that it's not, 1/3 unoccupied?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mr. Delegate. So the VA, as you know, has put out updated guidance on what best practice looks like and the design that they hope that all state-run veterans homes would adhere to. So our new home is certainly going to move towards that direction. We've been in conversation with DGS about the process of reviewing and exploring Charlotte Hall to assess how you could renovate and what those options might look like. And so I think we'll be coming back to the legislature with more detailed analysis on that, with a more detailed request, should that come.
Okay, and it's probably in your, sorry, Mr. Chairman, follow up. I'm sure it's in your written response, so I should really just shut up and look there. But there was a question from DLS about, additional veterans homes. You just described regional homes. Is there something else in the pipeline?
It is our desire. So nothing is as firmly committed as you know. We only have funding for the second home, which will open in Sykesville. But it is the vision that there would be more evenly distributed homes throughout the state. And so we look forward to working with the legislature and identifying those new potential locations.
Thank you. Congratulations, by the way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Delegate Corman. Are there any other questions for Secretary of Veterans Affairs? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. That concludes the budget hearing for the Department of Veterans Affairs. The committee will now move on to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, presented by Ms. Kelly Norton.
Thank you, Chair. We're going to begin on page 1, As you can see, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore has one project in the capital improvement program, the Agricultural Research Education Center. The funding in the CIP for this project is $12.6 million in special funds from the Fiscal Responsibility Fund for fiscal 2024 and $4.3 million in general obligation bonds for fiscal 2025. The prior funding includes $4.5 million in non-budgeted funds and $14.3 million in federal funds from a United States Department of Agriculture or USDA grant program. The summary for this project begins on page 2. The center will include specialized research laboratories, meeting rooms, as well as staff offices and support space to support the research and extension program at the School of Agricultural and Natural Sciences. It also includes a new hydroponic greenhouse, replacing one destroyed in a fire in 2011. It is expected to be completed by August 2024. This project has a long history dating back to calendar 2013 when UMES was initially awarded grant funds from USDA. From the start, the design phase was not expected to begin until calendar 2019, when the federal grant funds scheduled to be received in annual increments through calendar 2019 will be fully accumulated. The funding plan also included the use of the insurance payout from the fire that destroyed the university's hydroponic greenhouse. During the initial planning phase, the University of Maryland's Cost Center advised UMES that the project could not be constructed as scoped within the original budget estimate, which became evident when the design phase started in August 2022. Due to escalating construction costs, particularly on the Eastern Shore, state funding was determined to be needed to keep the original scope of this project and to take advantage of the federal funding before it expires. The project raises one concern in relation to the USDA grant. The authority to spend the federal grant funds was originally set to expire August 31st, 2022, but UMES received a one-year extension from USDA. With the funds once again set to expire in August 2023, an additional one-year extension request has been made by UMES. The university has advised that the requested extension is contingent upon an adequate funding plan, which would include the requested state funds. The university should brief the committees on the status of discussions with USDA to extend the federal grant funds, including all the contingencies that are expected to be applied to any such extension. The operating impact budget statement can be found on page 4. They're expected to begin at about $366,000 in fiscal 2024 and rise to $409,000 in fiscal 2028, covering the cost of 2 staff positions needed to maintain the building and associated utility costs to operate the building. DLS recommends approving all authorizations and changes to prior authorizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Norton, for the presentation. Are there any questions for Ms. Norton on the analysis? Thank you very much. This afternoon, we have joining us the President of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, President Heidi M. Anderson. Thank you very much, Madam President, for being here, and please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and delegates, I see the Vice Chair had to step away. First of all, thank you for having me here, and let me start by thanking Kelly very much, wherever she went, for that very nice analysis. Kelly, thank you so much for your help. I also, before I get into my remarks and responding, I just want to make sure I introduce our new Vice President for Administration and Finance, who's on her 125th day or something like that with us. So she's hoping she can say something. But on another note, though, I want to start by thanking this body for several things. First of all, I thank you for your continued support of our university and what you have done in the past for us from the standpoint of appropriations and capital. I also want to thank you because all of you were involved some kind of way in the HBCU settlement funding. And I just want you to know that that has been a very, very helpful support for all 4 HBCUs. And we are using it very judiciously, very wisely, and very thoroughly at our institution. I know that you have a copy of my remarks in our report. I also want to just say we agree with the analysis interpretation of this particular project, and we also agree with the allowance that the governor has put forward. So other than that, I would like to just add, the only thing I would say is please understand that we have almost $14 million, a little over $14 million in hand from this project. We have that from federal funds from USDA, and we do have the commitment from them that we have that right now. But as far as getting any other extensions, they won't go down that road at this time. And so that's why we're here to say we hope that you will agree that this is an important project for the Eastern Shore. As you heard the Secretary of Agriculture say earlier, agriculture is everything, and I think Delegate Grist reaffirmed that. Everything we do involves agriculture, and on the Eastern Shore, it is so important to our farmers. And what we will do with this particular building is bring those farmers to the campus to continue to make sure they are practicing efficient, effective farming, but also making sure that our students go out and do the same thing. And so this will be very, very beneficial to those on the Eastern Shore in all levels, including looking at what we do in the environment. So with that, I know you have a busy schedule. I'll just pause and see if you have any questions that I can ask.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Are there any questions from the committee? Madam President, Delegate Grist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I don't have a question, but just sort of a comment. And I think there's a huge opportunity in Maryland for beef production. And I think before we move forward in expanding, certainly that industry in our state, we want to do it right the first time. And obviously, the environment is probably the single biggest concern that we would have if we were to expand that. Obviously, to get it right, we would certainly want to use either UMES or College Park, and I would hope that it would be UMES because it makes more sense that we do it on the Eastern Shore where, majority of our crops are grown and our livestock is grown as well. But it is a huge opportunity for us, and it's a growing business. The consumers are demanding local beef, and I would hope that that's certainly something that UMES, because everything that you guys touched so far has turned to gold. I mean, we're very, very proud of our School of Pharmacy, and I hope that our agricultural center will be just as successful. So,
thank you, Delegate, and we
Thank you very
appreciate the comment, the kind comment.
Thank you very much, Delegate Grist, for your kindness. Are there any other questions from members of the Appropriations Committee for Madam President? Great, thank you very much for being here.
Okay, can we let her just say hello?
Sure, absolutely. Hello.
Thank you very much for the School of Pharmacy, by the way. We opened that building in January, and it's a beautiful building, and our students are very appreciative of it, so thank you.
Yes.
And thank you very much. And we had several of your students visit us a couple weeks ago, so we really appreciate them visiting us for Pharmacy Day.
Our students are in every county in the state of Maryland.
Thank
So
you.
if they didn't visit you here, they'll touch you in the pharmacy.
Wonderful. Well, that concludes the bill hearing for the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. The committee will now move on to the Department of Planning, presented by Carrie Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair. Again, Carrie Cook with the Department of Legislative Services to present the capital analysis for the Department of Planning. As you can see on page 1, the department has one project in their state-owned capital improvement program plan, which is the MAC Lab, or the Maryland Archaeology Conservation Laboratory, which I'll discuss in more detail in just a few minutes. They had just over $5 million previously authorized for this project, and the 2024 request includes almost $15 million in funding. Some key observations that I'm going to discuss a little bit later include that mandated funding levels for 2 of their grant and loan programs have increased due to bills passed in the 2022 session. The grant requests in the Maryland Historical Trust Grant Fund are significantly outpacing current funding levels. The recommended actions are going to be to conclude with the governor's allowance both for PAYGO and general obligation bonds. Some updates on a few issues going on with planning. So the Patterson Center project, which some members may recall from previous years, this is a state facility at Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum in Calvert County, and they are doing a major renovation and construction project at the facility. While there is no capital funding for the project this year, there has been in years past. They expect construction to be completed by summer 2024, and then after a few additional months of preparation, the agency plans to start regular tours and programming for the public, which has never been done at this facility before. They do have a few continued operating costs in fiscal 2024, and they're also requesting 4 new positions to support the increased tours and public programming at this facility, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. There are some amendments to prior authorizations, extending the termination for various programs, and I did also want to highlight a report which was requested in last year's Joint Chairman's report for historic easements throughout the agency. So this report summarized easements that the agency holds in sort of an inventory database kind of format, and it also discussed the process in which the agency undergoes getting and terminating easements. And I just wanted to pull out for the committee from the report, the agency notes that staffing levels are a big challenge for this program, making it difficult for staff to review deadlines, turn around requests and inquiries in a timely manner, many of which they're statutorily required to do, which requires them to pull staff from other projects. So DLS recommends that the agency comment on how personnel challenges have impacted administration of the program and how additional positions, particularly in light of the mandated funding increases for some of these programs, may help address these challenges. So turning now back to the Mac Lab, just getting into a little more detail there. So what this capital project is doing is both expanding the storage capacity of the facility and improving storage conditions. So the Mac Lab is the designated repository for archaeology and historical artifacts and records in the state. And construction is estimated to be completed in September 2024. So you can see in the tables on page 3, 2024 is the vast majority of the funding for this project, and there's no funding planned in any of the out years. You can see that the majority of funding here, almost $15 million, is for construction as they are wrapping up design and planning in the coming months, in May, actually. The total estimate for the project did increase about $7 million from last year's CIP, and according to DBM, that was because there were some elements that were inadvertently left out of last year's plan. But I did just want to note that this estimate is likely going to be quite accurate just because they are mostly finished with the design period, as I said, and are ready to begin construction very shortly. I did also just want to highlight that the agency requested one other pin for a total of 5 pins to support the Mac Lab, that is a digital archivist position, to support the continued collections that they hope to be able to receive with the increased storage capacity. So now I'm going to turn to the grant and loan programs. The department oversees 4 of these statewide programs. So the chart on page 5 shows the funding for each of these programs. The Maryland Historical Trust administers both a loan and a grant program, receiving $150,000 and $1,000 in fiscal 2024. The African American Heritage Preservation Grant Program and the Historic Revitalization Tax Credit, which requests, $22 million. And the exhibit on page 6 shows that those same figures, but described by fund source for all of the programs. So you can see that the tax credit last year in 2023 was split between general and special funds and is now exclusively in general funds. And then the increase in the GO bonds seen there in red is due to the mandated increase from $1 to $5 million for the African American Preservation Grant Program. So I'm going to just go briefly over these 4 programs. The tax credit program is the largest one with $22 million in fiscal 2024. The goal of this program is really just to rehabilitate and reuse historical buildings. So there are a couple of different ways that individuals, whether they be homeowners or owners of commercial buildings, can apply for tax credits. A bill last year extended the program through fiscal 2031 and made a few other changes, including increasing the annual appropriation for the competitive commercial aspect and increasing the cap for qualifying reimbursement costs. The full list of projects is listed in the appendices. And one other thing I did want to bring the committee's attention to regarding this program is the application process. So currently applicants are not able to apply for this program online at all. They have to physically print out forms and fill them out and mail them into the agency, which is obviously causing some challenges in terms of efficiency for both the application processes and the review processes on the agency side. This is an issue that the agency has been aware of and has been trying to work on. Initially, they wanted to integrate a system with a system that the National Park Service is developing. The reason being is that many folks who apply for these state credits are also applying for national tax credits that are similar. However, it has since become apparent that the National Park Service system is not going to have all the functionality that the department was hoping for. For example, you're not able to fill out the forms and submit them online. So the agency is now sort of going to pivot and try and develop their own system in-house. But given lots of different competing IT priorities, they did note that increased funding would assist in expediting the development of the system, and obviously having an online application and review process will greatly improve efficiency both for applicants and for agency staff that are reviewing those applications. Moving on to the MHT loan program. So this program provides loans to nonprofits, local governments, businesses, and others for acquiring and rehabilitating properties that are listed on the Maryland, or eligible for listing on the Maryland Register of Historic Places. The fiscal 2024 allowance reduces the annual amount from $300,000 to $150,000. I did want to note that in fiscal 2022, there were not any loans that were issued. This was a combination of two factors. One was staffing concerns. The agency had to prioritize their staff and they had trouble administering the program. And the second is the lack of interest due to unfavorable interest rates. There was just not a ton of interest in the loan program during that year. The agency notes that inquiries have increased due to the interest rates calming down a little bit, and they have also filled that vacant position, so it is back on track in that way. And I did want to note that there was $300,000 appropriated in fiscal 2022, and that still is there. That money has not gone anywhere, so they are still able to loan that out to any future applicants, and I believe the agency will mention an applicant in their testimony as well. Just some other comments on this program. MHT does have the legal authority to use this funding for purposes other than giving out loans. They are statutorily authorized to use it to rehabilitate properties that are owned by the trust. They have done this a few times in recent years, and there are some details in the write-up there on page 8. But basically, the moral of the story is that if they are using this funding for properties owned by the trust instead of loaning it out, obviously that's going to result in a need for recapitalization to keep the fund afloat because they're not receiving those loan repayments back from an applicant. So the agency should comment on any anticipated use of the loan program to support trust-owned projects and be prepared to discuss notifying the budget committees in advance when the loan program funding will be used for MHT projects, just to promote greater transparency in terms of where the funding is going. The third program is the MHT Grant Fund. So this is similar to the loan fund, but they're providing grants for historical properties, can go to nonprofits, local governments, etc. In the fiscal 2026, so in a few years, they plan to increase the funding from $600,000 to $1 million annually. However, I did just want to draw the committee's attention to Exhibit 3 on page 8, which shows that the funds requested is really significantly outpacing the amount that they have per year. So for example, from 2019 to 2022, they have awarded between 17 and 23% of all the funds. Because they award everything that they have and that's all they have. So the agency may consider sort of increasing the timeline for that planned funding, getting it up to $1 million, which is currently planned in fiscal 2026. The final program is the African American Heritage Preservation Program. So this supports local governments and nonprofits in preserving buildings and communities of historical and cultural significance to African American history and culture throughout the state. So as I mentioned at the beginning, a bill last year increased the annual appropriation for this program from $1 to $5 million, which is a big increase. And I also wanted to draw the committee's attention to the fact that they will not be receiving any additional personnel to administer this program, which could be a challenge down the road given that the amount has quintupled. There is another concern regarding the the expenditures of these funds. So the agency is encumbering the funds, meaning getting those grant agreements signed in a fairly reasonable time frame, but many of those funds have not been expended. So from fiscal 2019 to 2022, 80% of encumbered funds where a grant agreement was signed have not been expended, meaning the grantee has not finished their project and come back to get that reimbursement. So this is due to a number of factors. In a lot of cases, the grantees simply aren't able to finish the project with the grant that they were awarded initially due to rising costs, and so they can't come back and get that reimbursement until the project is done. So the increase in funding to $5 million could definitely help with this problem. The agency notes that they expect several grantees to come back and reapply for a second time to get additional funding so that they can finish their project. And then once they finish it, they can get that reimbursement and both of their grant funds will be expended. And the agency also just noted that the increase in the funding can increase both the number of projects and the dollar amount of support per project, so could potentially be supporting larger scale projects as well. And as I mentioned earlier, due to the large increase in available funding, the agency notes they may seek additional staffing, perhaps as early as in the fiscal 2025 budget request, to support the increased operations for this program. That concludes my formal presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cook. Are there any questions for Ms. Cook from the committee? Delegate Smith.
Yes, and thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just had a question, a great presentation, first of all. I had a question regarding the Maryland Historical Trust grant funds. I saw that, the increase in the fiscal year 26 was going to go to $1 million, but as you noted, the requests already outpaced even that increase. So I wanted to know, have you done any analysis of comparable programs in maybe neighboring states and like how much are in those grant?
I have not. We can certainly ask the agency if they have any data on other states and comparable programs, but I'm also happy to touch base with them, look into that, and get back to you maybe with some data points on that.
Right, because I think it might be 2 years old, but the Able Foundation did do a report about how our just overall historic tax investments as a state still lag behind neighboring jurisdictions, but just this particular pot might be a nice small, opportunity to analyze, where we could be more strategic there, because I believe that study said for every dollar we, spend on these types of, tax incentives, we get $8 back in economic activity. But for this particular, I was just curious if other similar grant programs had more adequately capitalized. But thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Smith. Are there any other questions from the members of the Appropriations Committee for Ms. Cook? Thank you very much, Ms. Cook, for the analysis. I'll now call up the Secretary of the Maryland Department of Planning, Secretary Rebecca Flora.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Ms. Cook, for that incredibly detailed analysis. We'll try not to carry on with too much more, but do a quick, brief response to a couple of the outstanding questions. And with me, I have Director Elizabeth Hughes with the Maryland Historic Trust and Director Rod Caulfield with the Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum, which I was so fortunate to visit a couple of weeks ago, because really most of all of this is centered in their two specific areas. And so I've asked them to join me today. And so we will just respond specifically to the outstanding questions, and then we're all here to answer any questions you may have. So we'll start with Director Hughes.
Great. So you do have a written response to those questions, but I'll just give a brief overview. The first one that had to do with staffing of the Historic Preservation Easement Program. We do monitor about 650 easements over 9,000 acres. We have 2.5 staff presently that administer that program. I think what we see is there's a lot of turnover because 2 of the positions, 1.5 of the positions is contractual. So in the report, we suggested that by making those positions permanent, that would be a big improvement, as well as adding another easement administrator position so that we can be out in the field more frequently and providing the sort of technical assistance that really helps our customers do their work. We are meeting our 30-day mandated turnaround time and responding to easement alteration requests, but I think we could improve our performance with the addition of more staff. The second issue that has to do with the Historic Preservation Loan Program, as the analyst mentioned, by statute, we are authorized to use some of the loan repayment funds to conduct rehabilitation of existing historic properties at Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum. Our regulations further describe that as up to 50% of loan repayment funds can be used for that purpose. And we have, on occasion, when we've been unable to secure funds through the CIP program or through the DGS Critical Maintenance Fund, to make improvements to properties that are in need of repair. But I want to assure you that we are never turning down borrowers in favor of using those funds on our properties. And we do have presently a loan application that we are working on for $30,000 involving a property in Montgomery County. And I understand we just got a call today about a loan that doesn't sound like it's going to be a good fit. But as we're seeing interest rates rise, there will be an increased interest in the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Secretary Flora or her team? I have a couple questions, if I may. The first question regarding, there was comments made earlier with the analysis about applicants being able to apply online, having online tools to be able to apply. Are there any updates for that?
Yes, we've discussed that internally, and because we were kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern waiting for the National Park Service to determine what was going to come out from them, which we've now learned is really not adequate. We're essentially activating our team internally in terms of our IT team to basically develop an overall proposal of how we can just move forward with that online application platform as soon as possible. I've challenged the team to have that actually completed by the time of the next session, because it's something that's been out there for far too long, and we really want to get that done and operating. Anything else you want to add, or does that cover it?
Yeah, well, maybe a parallel is through the legislative process, the bond initiative program, there's online application available in there, and maybe that might be helpful as a model. That's something. That's how we're able
Thank you.
to
We'll take a look at that.
be able to collect different applications for those programs. Second question I have, first of all, with regards to Ms. Hughes, thank you so much for Ms. Hughes over the years. It's been really helpful to our organizations, especially those of historical nature, trying to obtain funding. With the funding awards that are actually awarded, are there, within the applications, are there applications who are repeat grantees, or these, over the years, are they new organizations who are receiving the funds? Is there a pattern?
I mean, we certainly do have regular customers that are coming back because they know this is a source for them. But I think we are seeing certainly an increase. Part of the reason for repeat customers, too, has to do with, I think we've seen this in the African American program that was discussed, as we've seen increases in the costs of construction materials, as well as working with contractors and architects and so forth. The cap on the grant awards don't go as far as they used to, so having an increase in the cap on the African American grant program from $100,000 to $250,000 will really help projects get completed. They'll be one and done, coming in. But I think certainly we are expanding our reach in finding new folks to work with. The Heritage Areas program has been a great partner in that, because the Heritage Areas can connect us, along with the African American Commission, Preservation Maryland, and other partners, to folks who maybe aren't familiar with our financial assistance programs, so that we can make new connections in the community.
Great. Well, we really appreciate all your help, especially working with these organizations that really need guidance, and I know that with the limited funds that be able to help as many organizations out as possible, that'd be great. And then, with the regards to the applications, so if applicants receive the award from the previous fiscal year, are they able to apply and also get awards the coming fiscal year?
They are. I mean, certainly there's a desire to spread the wealth around and not go back to the same applicants again and again. But in those cases where they just need another grant to complete the project, I think there is a desire to help them get to the finish line. Because if they're halfway done the project, that really doesn't serve anyone. We want these facilities to be functional and available and used by the public. So in certain cases, I think there is a preference to help folks get finished so the property can be open to the public.
Right. So it sounds like the projects that are ready for prime time, that are ready to go now, that those would be more of eligible applicants to be able to receive funding at that year.
I mean, it really it depends on, the other priorities, but my understanding and talking to staff is as they're looking at these projects, that really is, a guiding principle. How do we help people get their project finished?
If there's truly a justifiable gap because of, we've been seeing huge increases in construction costs and supply costs and delays and whatnot. If there's truly a clear, reasoning around those types of things, it makes sense to, help fill that gap and get those projects moving forward.
Great. Thank you very much, Secretary Flora, Ms. Hughes, for being here. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
That concludes the budget hearing for Department of Planning. We'll now move on to the Military Department, presented by Mr. Ryan Green.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. If I could direct your attention just to page 1, looking at the summary of the capital projects, we can see that they have that the Military Department has requested funding for 2 projects in fiscal 24. The Harvard of Grace CSMS Support Equipment Automotive Maintenance Facility in Harford County and the White Oak Readiness Center in Montgomery County. Moving on to page 3 for a summary of the Harvard of Grace project. For an update on the status and schedule, in August 2022, the Board of Public Works approved the construction contract for the majority of the approved project scope. However, in order to keep the project within the amount budgeted, certain project elements considered severable without compromising the project were included as an add alternative item that would be folded back into the project should additional funds be obtained. The Military Department submitted a Chief of Staff of the Army's UFR award application to compete for the federal fiscal 2024 selection process. The Military Department requested authorization in the state fiscal 24 budget in anticipation of receiving the award, but the application was not selected. Federal funding would have been paid for the construction of 4 additional vehicle work bays. The rest of the project is separable from this, however, and the project itself is not considered delayed as a result of the application. Additionally, the Military Department intends to reapply in June 2023 for an unfunded priority list award in the federal fiscal 2025 budget. The Military Department is also considering a state funding request at the start of the state fiscal 2025 budget and will continue to pursue federal funding for this project. Moving on to page 4 for the White Oak Readiness Center renovation and expansion. The project is on track and design is expected to begin in October 2023. Beginning on at the bottom of page 4 and continuing on page 5, there's a summary of out-of-year funded projects. I just want to call your attention to the bottom of page 5 for the new Civil Support Team Ready building in Harford County. It'll construct an Maryland Army National Guard Civil Support Team Ready building at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, and it'll be 100% federally funded. It'll be built on federal land and will be designed to meet the U.S. Department of Defense's authorized requirements for a civil support team. Should federal funds not fully fund the project, it'll be paused until additional federal funds are available, and the estimated cost of this project, scheduled to begin fiscal 2025, is $13.3 million. Moving on to the next page, there's an updates on the current status of Military Department divestitures, of which they have several. I will not list them to save you guys time. However, there's an update for the Free State Challenge Academy that it has been renovating for the past several years, and during its closure in the COVID-19 pandemic, the FCA was able to initiate construction on several of the larger projects in the identified Phase 1 renovations. However, additional projects have been since moved to the DGS Facilities Renewal Program, and the funding for these projects was increased to $3.5 million to cover window replacements and additional work on the mechanical and electrical systems. Finally, beginning on page 6, but looking at the Exhibit 1 on page 7, we can look at the facility readiness for the Maryland Army, and we can see that last year it was at 37%, and there's been no progress made in the past year. However, this number is expected to increase as divestitures from the department increase as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Are there any questions from the members of the committee for Mr. Green on the analysis? Thank you. This afternoon we have joining us Major General Timothy E. Gowan. Thank you very much, Major General, for being here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman Lewis. Appreciate the opportunity to update the committee on the activities of the department and to respond to the issues raised and recommendations contained in the capital budget analysis prepared by Department of Legislative Services Analyst Ryan Green. Ryan, thanks again for your hard work. I'm joined today by a couple of my staff members. Got Nathan Crum, my Chief of Maryland Department Chief of Staff, and Catherine Kelly, our Director of Legislative and Government Affairs. I also have some other staff members here to help if we have any questions. First, I'd like to point out some of the recent departmental capital accomplishments. Capital improvement projects and related capital funding is necessary for the department to continue and improve the department's percentage of facilities in a fully functional status. Right now, it stands at 37%. Currently in the process of divesting 5 older readiness centers. That includes Cascade, Catonsville, Ellicott City, Greenbelt, and Pikesville. We have new construction or renovation completed for 2 readiness centers, including Easton and Freedom. And as mentioned, Phase 1 of the renovation of the Free State Challenge Academy has been completed and Phase 2 is underway. Construction has started on a new Marine Corps Reserve Center at Camp Frederick Military Reservation using capital funding provided through the Maryland Environmental Service for the project. Construction has started on the Combined Surface Maintenance Shop at Havre de Grace, and current capital improvement plan includes funding for the alteration and expansion at the White Oak Readiness Center, expansion of the Havre de Grace Combined Surface Maintenance Shop, and the renovation and expansion of the Frederick Readiness Center. The PAYGO recommended actions are to delete $10 million in federal funds for the Havre de Grace CSMS project as the application was denied and the funds are not forthcoming in FY24. Maryland Military Department respectfully does not concur with this recommendation. The project was not selected for FY23 federal funding, but it was not denied. This is a selection process with the National Guard Bureau, which reviews submissions from all 54 states and territories and competitively prioritizes them for selection based on limited amount of available funds. Our department submitted the CSMS project for funding in June of 21 and June of 22 for funding in FY23 and 24 respectively. The project was not selected for funding in FY23, however, the determination for FY24 has not yet been made. It's unclear when the Department of Defense will announce their selections. MMD also plans to submit this project in June of 23 to complete funding in June of in FY25. The project rates very competitively nationally at the present time and is likely to be selected for funding. The federal fund PAYGO authorization of $10 million is important to the department's ability to move forward with the remainder of this project expeditiously if selected by NGB in FY24. And therefore, MMD does not concur with the suggested action and would like the committee to reject the recommendation. Regarding the general obligation bond recommended actions, to approve $593,000 general bond authorization for White Oak Readiness Center renovation and expansion. We concur with DLS's recommendation on this. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my remarks. Sir, stand by for questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Major General Gowan. Are there any questions for Major General Gowan from the committee? Seeing none, that concludes the budget hearing for the military department. And that concludes today's budget hearing. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.